This is the beginning entrance to the National World War II Museum. Hi, I'm Jam. Welcome to Jam's Adventures. Today we are at the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, and this is a great museum. So we're going to tour it and give you guys a tour so you can see and learn all about World War II. So excited to be here, so let's get going on this tour. And this is the main lobby once you enter the museum.
Endless gunfire, but all 12 of my men fought hard, and 6 hours later, we safely reached the hills.
I shipped overseas to Edinburgh, Scotland. We had to be in good shape, so we trained by walking and hiking with.
This is the main lobby area, the entrance. DC. So here's a couple of Harley Davidsons. These are 1942 models. So these were used after Pearl Harbor was attacked, actually. These are 1942 Harley Davidsons, WLAs. This is actually not a Harley Davidson. This is a Simplex. Simplex Manufacturing Company of New Orleans created this motorcycle, so this is not a Harley Davidson. The first one's a Harley Davidson. And then this one's a DKW motorcycle. So I guess these aren't all Harley Davidsons, but that's cool. So this is the main lobby area. There's a big screen there, and then they've got this DC-3 aircraft, I believe. It's a DC-3. It's pretty cool. But if you look down below, there's some the boats they used. Again, this is where you get your tickets and stuff in the main area. And then we're on the second level right now. And then that's an overhead airplane. And of course we have the artillery there. They have some really cool models. Here's one of the USS Maglafin. So these are neat. They have a couple more over here that we can look at. Ooh, how honoring since I live in Missouri, the USS Missouri. Check that thing out with all of its armaments. Man, that is really cool. Look at those guns. That's a sweet, sweet ship. And look, even has some little aircraft on the back of it. Those are really neat. And then they have one more over here. The USS Arizona. Wow, and even look at those little airplanes. Of course, I love airplanes, so anytime there's airplanes, I'm going to see the airplanes on it. But look at this thing, the USS Arizona BB-39. Really cool. Ooh. This is the USS Fanshawe Bay. Look at all those Corsairs. Man, that's an awesome ship. Look at that. Those are Corsairs, the ones with the folded wings. Man, look at this. The detail on this model is just beautiful. That's a really neat one. And then we have over here, we have the This is hard to read. The USS St. Louis. Ooh, another Missouri ship. The USS St. Louis. Check that bad boy out. Some cool guns and cannons on that one too. And they all have the flotation planes on them. Wow. Pretty cool. It's a really cool picture of Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor Remembered. That's the name of this painting. It's kind of interesting. So I really like this graphic. This is a video graphic of the war timeline. So I really liked it. So I thought we would watch this for a second. It's really neat. It starts at the world at war, 1937 to 1945. Then it zooms in, 1937, Japan invades China. July 1937, Japan invades China, and then it goes to Germany. March 1938, Germany annexes Austria. Okay. It just shows how Germany, September 1939, Germany invades Poland. Okay. Interesting. Now it zooms back out. Spring 1940, Germany invades Western Europe. Wow. You can see the red showing where they're taking over into France. So their empire is growing by this point in time. The northern areas. Fall 1940, Battle of Britain. Romania gets taken over. Yugoslavia gets taken over this year. Summer 1941, Germany invades the Soviet Union. Wow. Now we're back over to the Japan. Summer 1941, Japan occupies French Indonesia. December 1941, Japan attacks U.S. at Pearl Harbor and sweeps across Pacific. So that was when Pearl Harbor was December 1941. You can see Japan taking advantage of these things. 1942, height of German and Japanese empires. 1942. Now the Allies turn to push back. 1942, the Battle of Midway. Over there, the Pacific. 1942, Americans fight at Guadalcanal and North Africa. Okay. So the U.S. is now in the war. (1943) Allies invade Sicily and Italy. I feel like we're playing Risk right now. (1944) Allies land in Normandy, France. Okay. Back over to Pacific. Allies invade Mariana Islands, 1944. Back to Germany. 1944, Battle of the Bulge, winter of 1944, that is. Wow. Huge strides there for the Allies. 1945, Americans invade Iwo Jima and Okinawa. Okay. We're fighting two fronts. May 1945, the fall of Nazi Germany. Wow. Back over to Japan. August 1945, fall of the Imperial Japan. And then end of World War II. What a great graphic. Pretty informative. This area is on level 2, and it talks about the impact of the war on Japanese Americans. So lots of stories of Japanese Americans from their perspective in World War II. And this is kind of interesting. It says exclusion and incarceration. In 1941, the U.S. mainland was home to more than 125,000 persons of Japanese ancestry, including about 47,000 Issei, our first generation Japanese immigrants, almost twice as many Nisei. The majority resided along the Pacific coast. Nearly 2/3 had full American citizenships. And then it says that President Roosevelt's Executive Order 9066 authorized the War Department to establish military zones nationwide, which forcibly exclude any and all persons from these areas. Consequently, the Army uprooted 120,000 people of Japanese ancestry from the West Coast to the continental United States, forcing them to abandon homes, businesses, personal possessions for makeshift assembly centers, incarceration camps. Notably, the circumstances and highly differed as Japanese Americans constituted 30% of the population. They were not subject to the same widespread incarcerations. So, just a little interesting facts for Japanese Americans. And then there's little stories and things of some of their experiences. So kind of cool. So different photo galleries of different Japanese Americans that served during the war. So this just talks about some restitution for some of the Japanese Americans. President Jimmy Carter signed a bill creating the Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment of Civilians in 1980. Basically, it gave financial recompense in the amount of $20,000 to each surviving incarceree. Later, Congress passed an act that allowed for restitution to more than 100,000 survivors of the incarceration camps. Final apology letters and checks, and the proposed amount went to more than 80,000 Japanese Americans. And basically, they determined that race prejudice, and war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership, not military necessity, prompted the order, the original order, to put them in those internment camps. So this display is quite unnerving. So at the beginning of the war, the United States really was not a superpower compared to Japan and Germany. You can see we only had 335,000 service members, and these little model men show the difference compared to 850,000 for Japan and 3.1 million, or almost 3.2 for Germany. So this was at the start of the war. Wow. Did not know that.
Americans fixed their sights on a double victory.
So this section talks about the African Americans, and Native Americans, and how they were second-class citizens, and just kind of talks about that. So interesting. United but unequal is what it says. So this area basically talks about the training of American citizens to join the war, from women to African Americans to Japanese Americans. It even talks about conscious objectors. So that's what this area is about. I love the airplanes. It's kind of neat. This section is kind of interesting. It talks about how the United States transferred from a civilian society to a wartime society. We weren't ready for this war, but once the war started, we were able to militarize basically our civilian population to build war machinery. Basically the same thing Germany did. So kind of interesting. This section is kind of interesting. It talks about the building the nuclear bombs and the atomic bombs, or the not nuclear but atomic bombs.
2 months later, Roosevelt takes the next step, authorizing the military to secretly attempt construction of a bomb. The president selects Colonel Leslie R. Groves to head up the Manhattan Engineers.
It's Kind of interesting. It just shows the difference in the field attire of the German and American infantry. The one on the left is the German, and the one on the right is the American. You can kind of see the German. It's funny, it's very similar. Very similar. Not a lot of difference in them. This is an interesting exhibit with some of the weapons from both the Americans and the Germans. So, very interesting exhibit. There's the Americans. See all of our different guns, and wow, look at that. Then on this wall you have the Germans. This is interesting. It's one of the Enigma machines that the Germans used to encode their messages. So that's very interesting. By 1940, British intelligence was able to read much of the Enigma radio traffic information gathered from decrypted messages, also known by the codename Ultra. The breakthrough enabled the Allies to monitor German troop movements, engage German reactions to Allied activity. It proved to be invaluable to the D-Day deception planners because it permitted them to see if the Germans accepted their misinformation as truth. Based on the German response, the Allies could alter their efforts as needed to maintain the ruse. Interesting. This is the gallery for the Normandy invasion in France. So it's kind of like a camouflage with guns sticking out there, but all sorts of exhibits on this floor.
Instead, it becomes a soldier's war, conducted with guns. Progress is slow. Despite steady pounding by Allied aircraft.
Yeah. But unlike most civil manufacturing facilities, Higgins had an integrated workforce with African Americans and whites working side by side. Higgins celebrated another Father's Day with
Look at that. This is a German Flak 37 88mm dual-purpose gun. Very cool. This is the bridge called the American Spirit Bridge. It connects the first building to the other buildings that you cross. I believe the road we're crossing here is Magazine Street. But you can see we're in New Orleans, and there's the bridge over there towards the aquarium and the bridge. Then over here you can see So the second building has to do with the merchant marines and all the people who joined the war effort to help get supplies across and troops across the ocean. This is the entrance to that bridge, and you cross the bridge from building 1 to this one.
If we are to stand any chance of emerging victorious, the United States will have to build the most powerful arsenal the world has ever seen.
You already walked through that?
Our scientists and engineers must
Still
develop
calling it.
advanced technologies.
It goes this way.
We must muster and train 15 million men and women against the known Japanese Navy. American sailors will be required to secure shipping to transport troops and equipment. While enemies fly our submarines, our pilots must take control of the skies before we can advance our campaigns on land and at sea, so that our troops can undertake perilous amphibious landings. Is to isolate Australia and New Zealand by attacking supply lines coming from the United States. The pivotal step in the Japanese strategy involves building an airfield on Guadalcanal from which to launch their air attacks. On the other side, the U.S. must launch its first flight offensive. The American States don't hold the Japanese with the Japanese, and then find themselves quietly fighting a second battle in Southeast Asia. The elements of everyday lifetime, the oppressive heat, overwhelming humidity, punctuated with torrential downpours, can turn living in the jungles into a debilitating torment. For these young Americans, the island will feel an alien and Chester distance stands ready. But regard their army and dividing resources between two areas. American people are feeling until their cruelty reaches a horrifying climax in the Chinese capital of Nanking. Taught from childhood that the Chinese are racially inferior, Japanese troops descend on the city, murdering hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilians. Children.
Now, I hope that your history teacher taught you something about
that result. Frustration boils over from the ground all the way up to General Eisenhower. The Allies come to pin their troubles on a 6th century abbey perched high atop Monte Cassino, convinced the Germans are using it as a formidable observation post. At first,
below him, thousands of troops in Higginsville plow through the choppy water toward their landing site. At 06:27 hours, the major tumors pieces on the final eyewitness.
Roosevelt declares,
We're gonna start the war from here.
within hours, the American infantry fights through the German defenses. Arriving at the causeway, the infantry units make
Now the front line, boys, face a brand new danger. Line after line of impossible vegetation.
All these people, citizens, all this clapping and waving and yelling, and someone coming out with champagne or roses or something.
Allied airborne armies advanced to secure key bridges in Holland. The Eindhoven, Nijmegen, and Arnhem. Your armor in the area, over.
they stumble upon one concentration camp. Another nation he professes to love than admit defeat. Most military and SS officers loyal to the Fuhrer remain unified to the last minute. But ordinary German soldiers, realizing the war is lost, surrender in large numbers.
Many carry war scars from physical and mental.
I get frightened myself when I think of close friends who are now at the mercy of rulers and monsters ever stop again. And all because they are Jews. Friday, October 29, 1940. My nerves are beginning to especially in summer.
So this is the Boeing Center gallery, and it's really cool. Lots of aircraft above us.
After dropping food and supplies, a naked pilot skillfully landed his
P-51 Mustang.
in a small lake about 12 miles away from the downed B-17.
So this is a really neat gallery. Sherman tank, Dodge truck.
To rescue the men. 10 days after the crash,
P-51 Mustangs there.
was brought safely back home. The plane was almost forgotten to history until the local airport sergeant Gary Larkins was hired in 1995 to retrieve it. Larkins and his crew spent the next 3 weeks living on the ice and dismantling Mike 7 by hand.
Getting Mike out South back from America wasn't the end of the story. The plane sat for the next 5 years untouched. It took a man to keep on with the World War II service of his family and their generation to begin the restoration.
Just really cool architecture.
So when Rennie found out about my gal Sal, he paid a visit to the original hangar where she was stored. And Bob, Larkins restored the fuselage and Rennie recruited a crew of 22 volunteers who labored every week for 12 years, putting in nearly 80,000 hours to painstakingly restore my gal Sal. The original goal was to display the plane in a memorial at the Blue Ash Ohio Airport. But the airport was closed, and Sal needed a new home. Red decided to donate my gal Sal to the National World War II Museum as part of its collection in the U.S. Freedom Code, the Boeing Center.
I'm emotional now. Thinking about this airplane. We spent so many hours.
At the end of the day, it's going to Mars. After 70 long years, fate has finally brought my gal Sal home. She hangs in honor of the men who stayed with her on that Greenland ice cap. And she hangs as a symbol of the innovation, fortitude, and will of a generation whose sacrifice and unwavering commitment to liberty left an indelible mark on our world.
Some little mannequins in there. Check out those engines. Sweet. And there's the P-51 down below. Look at that. Hey! B-25 over here. B-25. Those are some cool cannons on this gun. And that's the Boeing Center at the World War II Museum. And last but not least, the final mission, the submarine war. Well, thanks for joining us today on Jam's Adventures. This was our tour of the National World War II Museum in New Orleans. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe to our videos, and we've got some more coming, so keep watching. See you on the next one.